Large language models are taking our jobs, dominating us in chess, and commenting on my videos. But can they beat us in Wordle? I put 20 large language models to the test to see which one would come out on top. So quickly, what is Wordle? Wordle is a game where you have to guess the correct word. You enter a word, and when it comes back, each letter will either be green, yellow, or gray. Gray means that the letter is not in the word at all. Yellow means that it is, just not in the right position. Green means that's in the current position. And that information is clues to the final word. So for this app, what we're going to do is have the large language model control our browser. They're going to play the real thing. I'm going to use something called Stagehand, which lets you use AI to control Playwright. And ideally, what I want to do is reuse the same code so that I just have to plug in a new AI provider. Here's the code to set it up. First, we have the Playwright instance go up. We have Gemini 2.0 flashlight closing the pop-up as soon as it goes on, and then scrolling down to the game area. Once it's down at the game area, we then prompt the other LLM to make a guess. Once we get the guess, we then get Stagehand to type it into the browser and hit enter. We then get the results of this and pass it in as context for our next guess. Rinse and repeat, and we either get a loser or a winner. And this was actually a lot of fun to view on my desktop because you get like the automated aspect of it in real time. Setting up the system prompt as well was pretty hard. I did a mix of giving the updates in that kind of square view that you're used to sharing on like Facebook or to your grandma. And it turned out pretty good, but more on that later. So here's how we're going to judge it. For me to pick the best winner out of all of this, it has to do a bunch of items. Ideally, speed here is king. Have a good reasoning behind why I picked something and can get the word in the least amount of terms possible. So my expectations is that the very smart and expensive models will do it slow, but get it right. And the opposite end for the stupid models. Our first batch of contestants come from the ChatGPT side of the internet, the OpenAI Models. So 04 Mini High did pretty good. It was able to complete it in 1 minute and 38 seconds. Just remember that some of this is baked in by default because of the timeouts I have to set. It started off with the word slate, and you can see the reasoning throughout the entire thing. It knew exactly what words to predict based on the context. It really didn't mess anything up. Funny enough, 04 Mini did better than 04 Mini High. It was able to get it in only 1 minute and 3 seconds and was only able to get it on the third try. The difference between these two models is that the 04 Mini High just has a higher reasoning capability, but that was clearly a disadvantage at this point. GPT 4.1 just failed. There's an interesting pattern here that's developing though. Whenever Crane is started with this particular Wordle, it's a good opening just in general. However, you can see by the end here, it just kind of struggles to keep up. Sometimes you have to intentionally say a word that might be wrong on purpose just to get a letter that will help you. But it just seemed like constantly it was not working. So this is really weird. GPT 4.1 Mini got it right on the second try. In only 32 seconds, it was able to get it. Now, I don't know if this is wild and lucky, but at the same time, it's like, wow, it just shows how random these can be. Now, 4.1 Nano, on the other hand, just didn't get it at all. But it did blow through the whole thing really fast, which, fail fast, I guess. Only 1 minute, it was able to guess 6 times. It had the Crane opening, which, good sign. And then it did Brine after, which I thought was also a good guess. But then it discussed Brine again. And it was just kind of downhill from there. GPT 4.0, not good whatsoever. It would just make up random things. I think it made up the most amount of words, to be honest. It went on for about 1.5 minutes, although fast, bad. 03 took 1 minute and 55 seconds and got it in 3 turns. As expected, the long reasoning time is what made it go so long, but it was pretty consistent at getting it right with the context given. I'm actually pretty impressed with the amount of versions of these large language models. A lot of the times we just grab the biggest, baddest LLM to get what we want, but I find that the performance on the Mini is a really, really good balance of intelligence with shortness. And looking at my code, I think it just makes sense that the older models might not understand Wordle as well. I had to do some sort of prompt engineering in there to make things a little bit easier to understand for each turn. And this just adds a lot of context. So I'm thinking that it might not be the best for most, especially for the reasoning models that take a lot more time to do. Claude 4 Opus, all right, the newest and greatest apparently, got it done in 6 tries. It took about a minute and a half to do it. But what I thought was really interesting with this one is that it got it greens at every single time. Rather than it be like a yellow and then kind of not understanding what's supposed to be in a different place, it was just very intelligent with what should be replaced with what. I just actually felt like it got a bit unlucky at first. Now, something I noticed right off the bat is that Sonnet didn't really respect the 5-letter aspect of it. It only happened once, so I just reran it again because I wanted to give it a fair shot. I know there are special APIs you can use that allow you to get a specific result, but I was a bit surprised by this. But even after giving it another try, it was just really bad. First, the opening word is adieu. I get why they thought that was a good one, but it just wasn't a good guess. Then it started to mess up and say words that weren't even real, like E-code. And then by the end, it did depose, but that's a 6-letter word. So it cut off the E and it didn't even work. Just very, very disappointing. Now, Claude 3.7 Sonnet did better, but it still wasn't perfect. It was able to get it in 5 and did it in a minute and 21 seconds, but still it ran into some obvious issues where it just gave some words that didn't exist. It's really interesting to see how Claude model performed because generally speaking, I do see them as the smartest models. In fact, I use them as my daily driver, but under complex situations like this, if you want to call that complex, it's a bit funny how they just don't perform at all. Okay, this is funny. Okay, Haiku didn't get the word right, but I felt like the reasoning was better. It took 1 minute and 6 seconds to do everything. It got unlucky, but it just sucks. I'm really starting to enjoy the small models here. Now, doing all of these tests on a local browser would just take forever, and you want that consistent reliability of it being there. Browserbase is a web browser for your AI so that you can create AI agents and applications specifically meant to crawl the web. You can easily integrate it in your flow, whether you're using Playwright, Puppeteer, Selenium, or using their own framework called Stagehand, which I'm using here. I like it because I can use natural language to just scrape the entire internet, basically. No selectors, no nothing. I just simply put the command that I want the AI to do and it execute it for me really easily. And one of my favorite things to automate is automating a web browser to do something that I would do constantly in a web browser. And with Browserbase, you can easily do that. You can then go on their session dashboard and see everything happening in real time or get an instant replay, which you've seen a ton of them already in this video. I'm a big fan of dev tools that just help me build software faster. And with Browserbase, I couldn't thank them enough. Thank you to Browserbase for sponsoring today's video. Make sure you check them out at the link below. Now, the Google AIs have been absolutely killer, and as of this video, they're kind of like topping the leaderboards if you believe any of those. They're really fast and really powerful, but let's give them a try. Gemini 2.5 Flash got it in 4 turns and did it in 45 seconds. This one is just clearly really intelligent, but you can tell it sadly got 2 back-to-back unlucky guesses, but either way, they got on the 4th try. This one was wild. 2 turns, but it took 1 minute and 40 seconds. Very slow. But you can really tell it was like thinking so many different things at the same time. I don't know if there was a lot of luck into it, but honestly, just impressive. Gemini 2.0 Flash Lite was disappointed because it had so much potential. It was really fast. I think it guessed 9 different things and 3 other things were wrong, but it was just really fast and did it in 1 minute and 22 seconds. But it also guessed the word dozen like 3 times. Kind of wild. All the Google ones were really good. I like how fast they were, especially with the Flash models, and they were super cheap as well. So honestly, very impressed with Google. Going to be a little bit of nuance here because we're going to be using hosted services. So the speed of this is going to depend a lot. Llama 4 Maverick wasn't able to get it, but it was really fast because we used Samba Nova. And again, quick disclaimer, this is where things get interesting because things like Samba Nova, Grok, or Cerebras are known to have hardware that specifically worked well with this and give you high token counts. So it still didn't get it though. Sadly, Llama 4 Scout was really bad. It just kept failing at everything it did. It would constantly not give back a 5-letter word result, which was like, come on, that should be the easiest part. It really just shows how Llama 4 kind of just disappointed, especially considering how 3.3 was GOAT. Now, Llama 3.3 70B was a bit of a disaster. It guessed housed 4 times. Yeah, I thought maybe the inference that was happening on Samba Nova was like a cache or maybe quantized or something. That's part of the reason why it was fast, but switching over to Google Vertex, it guessed house 5 times as well. So yeah, a bit disappointing. Even though it wasn't able to get this specific scenario, Llama is just some of the most goated models that there is. So take this with a bit of a grain of salt, but a bit disappointing. Here's a bunch of other proprietary models that are not open source, but just find their way in there. Grok 3 beta did great. 50 seconds. It was able to get it on the 5th try, and I think some of the words were a little bit questionable, but I think it did a great job overall. I'd be very happy with this. It was also really fast. But again, I'm so impressed with the mini version of these models. It was actually able to get it in 3. What was strange though is that there was a somewhat decent delay in between the answers, which I felt like was a bit strange because it still went over the original Grok beta. Now let's go to the local gang, okay? We got the open source models. There are way too many out there, so I'm just gonna go over the really popular ones at the moment. For the beefy open source models like Deepseek, we're doing that on the cloud, okay? But for ones I can run on my device, I'm gonna try that. Unfortunately, Deepseek v3 also got it right, but decided to say prone at the end every single time. And after trying again, it just didn't work. I tried a 3rd time and it still repeated prone, but on the 4th it got drone. You can definitely see where the reasoning is happening here, but sadly it just wasn't up to speed. Deepseek R1 got it in 3 turns. It started off with Slate, which for this example was not a good opening, but still found a really good way of reasoning around it. Deepseek R1 just blew everyone away when it first came out, and to be honest, I still feel like it's a bit underrated. Qwen 3 4B Q4 quantization did it in 3 turns and did it in 1 minute. Wow. This is just incredible. It's just some of the smallest models you can get, and it's doing this over supercompute. It's honestly, I was blown away by this. Qwen 3 is just the GOAT. Mistral medium, disappointing. The good news is that it was really fast, but the issue, I tried to get too much words at once. It gets the word boner, come on, but wasn't able to put it in because a previous wrong choice was in there. Then it was literally so close. It had the word prone in there, but it thought that maybe the Wordle was wrong and said, no, I'm gonna give it to you 3 times. Overall, it was really interesting to see all of the models do the same task. And for the most part, I think consistently the large models that took a long time would get the answer most times. But what I really liked seeing is the small models, especially the really small models that are able to get it done fast as well. I truly believe the future of AI is fast AI, because even if it's wrong a couple times, it can quickly correct itself, as we've seen in this. Thanks again for Browserbase for sponsoring today's video. Make sure you go check it out. If you really like this video, I have the source code online if you want to see that as well. Peace out, coders.